Hello everyone and welcome back to Avante RC. In this video, as you can probably tell, I'm going to be reviewing the Tamiya Wild one. I drove this car for the first time yesterday and I'd heard a lot about the hype behind this car, but my uncle and I decided to get this not because of driving really, it was more just the fact that we've never had anything like this, and it's one of those iconic cars that are just nice to have in the collection. But I drove it, like I said, I drove it yesterday and I was really surprised. And I'm going to talk more about that when I take it out for a drive today. I'll tell you about why I was surprised and what this car's like to drive. So I never really liked, like I said, I never really understood the hype behind it, and one of the reasons was the looks. But now seeing it in person, it actually looks really nice. It's quite a wide car. If you look at the chassis, especially from the front, you've got that kind of hexagonal shape, and it kind of has that Hornet Grasshopper style look, but much wider, of course. And it's from the bumper as well is also a Hornet / Grasshopper bumper. So it kind of looked strange because it was very wide at the front. If you look at the cabin, if I bring it around, it's quite a wide looking car as well, but in person that actually, it grows on you and actually looks quite nice. So yeah, this car is as you can probably tell, 2-wheel drive buggy. It's got the same wheels as the Fox, and it's currently got just a normal silver can with a TBLA02 speed controller, and then the old-fashioned aerial and receiver. It's also got the LED front and rear lights, so it's got 4. The rear lights are red, front lights are white, like a whitey blue colour, very nice colour actually, and they do work quite well when they're working, but there is a bit of a loose connection in these two, so currently only these two work all the time. Take the battery in and out. Sounds quite simple, but it might not be immediately obvious because there are some things that may trick someone. So obviously the pin goes out, pretty straightforward. Most cars have a pin on the front bonnet. People see this and they think you need to unscrew this. Thankfully not. It's a bit of a strange one, this, but you basically just pull it up and pull it back, and there's literally just a catch here. If I show you, there's just a catch there that you basically slot onto that roll cage type thing, like what is meant to be a roll cage. And yeah, so once that's out, then you just do it on the other side. And now remember, if you're getting this car used like this one, and it's got the LEDs in, don't rip the shell off because it will pull the lights out. Because remember, the lights are connected to the shell, and the cable is in there, so don't yank it out. I guess the guy who had this before probably forgot about that, and he probably yanked it out, causing the loose connection with the cables. Oh well, it's not a big deal, we can sort that out. But also, one other thing I forgot to say was you need to take this off at a bit of an angle because these nuts here are protruding, so you kind of have to do one side at a time. Anyway, now that is off. Now you can see the inside. Simple kind of, I'll show you here, bathtub chassis. If you pull this driver away, you can just see the TBLA02 speed controller and the receiver. Not really much to see, to be honest. You obviously got your servo up front as usual, and you've got this kind of weird suspension thing going on here. Obviously you've got these uprights, similar to kind of the Super Hot Shot. It's nice that it's in aluminium, very, very strong, and it's nice that it comes with metal shocks as well from standard, from stock. And it's also got this this kind of arm here, rather than attaching that way, it kind of attaches here along this sort of bar that's also connected to here, so they kind of move together, if that makes sense, a bit more than your usual independent shocks would. And then yeah, as I say, pretty much generic Grasshopper 2, Grasshopper 1 Hornet front bumper. And yeah, that's it pretty much. And there's also this brace here, this plastic brace, which is quite nice. I'm sure it will just take the edge off any impact that gets past this, or there's maybe an angle here. Yeah, fairly straightforward, fairly 1980s Tamiya, to be honest. It's got these red parts here, which I think are quite interesting, these red plastic parts, because it's the only car I've seen, or is one of the only cars I've seen, that have got this red bits. Usually Tamiya go for blue or yellow, that's quite a common theme, but obviously this is red. Sorry, actually the Hot Shot had red parts as well, so, and maybe the Bearhawk as well, so actually yeah, maybe a few cars, but generally it's blue or yellow, so I think it's interesting to have these plastic red parts. And obviously these plastic parts are really typical Tamiya 80s. If you look at all the cars, Boomerang, Hot Shot, there's so many, the Thundershot family, they've all got these plastic parts, and they're quite good, they're robust, they're strong, they're much better than the cheap plastic here. And yeah, anyway, what we got at the back, so we've got pretty much probably mentioned it already, but we've got pretty much similar kind of rear gearbox casing as you would find in a Grasshopper 2, Subaru Brat, Frog, something like that. It's completely different, I believe, the design, but the overall kind of like silhouette of it is similar. So you got your 3/4 chassis here, and then you got your quarter at the back with the motor and the gearbox casing and the gearbox and the rear wheels and the rear axle and everything. So you kind of got that in two pieces, so you got two pieces of the chassis. That's quite common with a lot of 80s Tamiyas, and you do get that horrible flex in it, but that's not the case with this car, and you'll see that when we drive it. And it's got these kind of, well, they're not proper like arms, are they, or axles, but it's got like this rubber tubing, you can see here, similar to the Subaru Brat or Frog. So yeah, it's this car, like I said, the looks have grown on me, and is quite a cool car. It does look like quite a big car actually. The length is pretty standard, to be honest. It's kind of elongated by this rear section here with the red plastic as it goes up there. But the main thing that makes this car look big is because of how wide it is. Like I said, usual or typical two-wheel drive 80s Tamiya buggies like the Grasshopper, Hornet are very narrow. So seeing a car this wide, it kind of gives it beefier kind of look and makes it bigger. If you even look at the driver, even the driver's bigger as well. So this is the underside of the Tamiya Wild one. Again, when I see screws here, I just think, oh gosh, I have to unscrew it. And it was quite late last night that I drove this, and I didn't go as far as taking the screws off, so I didn't go that far, but I almost did. But luckily, I did see this clip here, so you just simply undo the clip, and you kind of take it out. You could do that, but to be honest, you're probably not going to get the battery through there. Just take it out like that. And this is actually quite a nice little FRP piece here. I have heard quite a few people, or know quite a few people, they don't know what this actually is. So they'll say that the battery compartment is not with the car, or the car didn't come with a battery compartment, and they think that this is something completely different, but this is it. So just thought I'd turn the camera on quickly, just to show you the light. Like I said, two of them are working, two of them aren't. I think that looks really cool, to be honest. the camera picks up quite well, surprisingly well actually. That I think looks really cool. This is actually the first car that I've driven or seen with working lights. We've actually got quite a few working light kits, but I've never actually seen them working. So this is the first time. So then, out on the grass with the Tamiya Wild one. At the moment, I'm gonna just drive it on the grass. It's actually got pretty good ground clearance, so it's a good car to drive on the grass. But yesterday it did have a few reception issues, where it kind of did a few things on a mind of its own. Obviously, just electrical issues, so not the car's fault. I think they should be fixed because I think it was from a bad connection with the battery. Now that I fixed that, I'm just going to test it here, and then if it behaves itself, we'll go onto the tarmac. Right, so let's have a go.
Sound right, boys.
So as you can see, great looking car. Looks really good driving around, and it's really quick as well. Pretty good ground clearance as well, because to be honest, this grass isn't that short. Yeah. I say this with a lot of cars, but I really mean it with this car. If someone told me that this was a faster motor, something like a super stock, maybe a 15-turn motor. Yes, I was really surprised about how silky smooth this car was, especially considering same generation as the Boomerang, which, like I said, felt like wood. It's even got the same tyres as the Boomerang, so really surprised. I don't think it's just the shocks that make this so smooth. I think it's also, like I said, it's got that bar at the front that's connected. It's got these that are quite high up, so it kind of gives it good ground clearance as well. You got this at the good shocks at the back, but also because of this stabilising here. Like I said, from this rubber tubing to here, so it's basically from here to here. It stabilises that way, rather than being that way or that way. And then you've also got, like I said, you got stabilising that way, because it's this way, and then because it doesn't actually connect to the car. And I think that's probably why it's so good, because if you look here, this connects to here, which goes along there, so this arm doesn't connect to the chassis of the car. It kind of goes around it, same as the back. And I think that gives it a really smooth ride, the fact that it's not connected to the chassis, because the chassis is moving like that, and if it's not connected to the chassis, I reckon it's going to be smoother. So in my opinion, I think that's the reason why it's so smooth, and it is a unique car in that way.